guys, today we're going to learn how to draw a puppy. So when I look at this drawing, the first thing I notice is the body of the dog is pretty much a circle. If you visualize it like that, I think it's really helpful. And same with the head. His head is, again, a circle like this. So when you go to draw over here, I'm going to start by kind of going, okay, here's the body. And then here would be his head. So, and I draw it really light with pencil. This is not the finalized work. We can always go back and erase stuff. But this gives you a good framework to start on. And then the next thing we're going to look at is the dog's ears. And his ears almost look kind of like a sideways like a triangle, with the longest side being alongside his head. So I'm going to draw 2 triangles alongside his head, and that's going to be his ears. And you notice that my line work is very rough. Like, I'm not worried about it being perfect. Like, I'm not drawing it like this because it's actually harder to draw that way. It's a lot easier to draw in little light movements, just to kind of outline, get a basic idea of the shape, and then you can come back in and really fine tune it, make it look better the way you want it. So next, I'm going to draw in the dog has, kind of his snout, which again is pretty much another circle. So because I have it side by side, I can kind of see this is his head. So the snout's going to be roughly around there. And I'm kind of, see how I'm not really worried about being perfect. Just trying to get things where they're supposed to be. And then I'm going to go and draw in the front legs. And the front legs are not like a perfect shape. It's kind of like a oblong shape or elliptical shape, but kind of with a little bit of a bend along the outsides of the dog. So I'm going to go draw in his legs. There's his front legs, and then you can barely see his little legs in the back. So I'm going to draw that in just to give you an idea of that he has back legs. He's not a two-legged dog, he's a four-legged dog. And then I'm going to draw his nose, and his nose is very circular, and it's roughly around here. And then 2 circles for his eyes, which are about here. And now I can start cleaning it up where those shapes overlap. Kind of cleaning it up right like that. I'm erasing where these shapes overlap. So when I look at the drawing and I look at the dog's muzzle, I don't see a perfect circle. The main things I see are right here, there's a little line, right here, there's a line. And so I'm gonna erase this part right here because you don't see a perfect circle. The other thing I notice is that there's kind of the upper part of his mouth right here kind of comes like this. So I'm going to refine my drawing to reflect that. And then you see a little bit right here of his open mouth right there. And I also noticed that the bottom of his mouth is not quite in line with this perfect circle I drew. So I'm going to refine that to reflect that. So there we go. There's the bottom of his mouth. And then I'm going to draw in a couple circles for the nostrils and his nose. And then when I look at his eyes, I notice that there's kind of this darker part right here and right here. So I'm going to draw that in. And I also notice that I can't actually see all of his eyes. Some of his, he has a little bit of eyelids kind of coming down right here. And part of the side of his face coming here. And that's obscuring this perfect circle of his eyes. So I'm going to change my drawing to reflect that as well. So it kind of comes like that. I'm going to have a line on this side, and I'm going to do the same for the other eye. And I'm looking at his snout, and it looks a little wonky on this one side, so I'm just going to fix that so that it's more even on both sides. And I'm also noticing that this right here, this line that goes between his nose and where his mouth opens on my drawing, it's too low. So I'm going to adjust that and bring it up a little bit more. And adjusting your drawing is a big part of drawing, and being an artist is you draw it and you go, that doesn't look quite right. And then you just go back and you fix it, you refine it. And since we're just using pencil, it's very easy to do that. And then now I need to bring up the bottom part of his mouth needs to come up as well. I think there's a misconception with artists that we draw it perfectly the first time, and that is very, very far from the truth. It's a lot of revisions that goes into it. I'm also noticing that I drew these nice triangles for his ears, but in reality, his ears are not perfect triangles. That gives me a good idea of the shape of it, but it's not really reflective of what he looks like. So I'm gonna kind of refine that up here. And then also I'm noticing like right here, his, ear kind of flips out a little bit. So I'm going to reflect that. And it's kind of curving more inward. a little bit. It's a little bit of a curvy line instead of a straight line. So I'm going to reflect that too. And it's the same for the other side. It's more of a curve on the right side. So I'm going to reflect that as well. And now they look more like ears. Another thing I'm noticing is that his legs look way too short. The shape of them are fine, but they look way, way too short. So I'm going to fix that as well. I'm going to bring them down so that they look better. Yep, now it doesn't look weird. And just erase that part. That looks a lot better. Now I'm going to draw on his bow tie. So for his bow tie, draw pretty much like a little rectangle, and then we have these shapes going off to the two sides. Like that. And then also there's little creases in the bow tie. So we're going to reflect that in our bow tie to show that. So now we're going to add the fur. I'm going to start with his ears because I think his ears, you can really see the fur kind of along the edges. If you look lightly, kind of lighten up my pencil, not completely erase, but just kind of lightly erase some of the line work along his ear so that I can come back and really add these little marks that indicate the fur. So now that looks more like how he looks. And I notice also there's very distinct fur in here. You can really see fur. So we're going to draw that on his one ear. Now we're going to do the other side. You can see this kind of comes out in a point. The fur looks a little different on this side. So again, I'm going to lightly erase. Not completely, because I still need that as a guide. And then I'm going to come back in and try to duplicate the fur. And this is just little lines. And don't get too frustrated if this isn't looking right to you. Like, drawing fur is hard and it takes a lot of practice, so just be patient. And then I notice also that there's this distinct lines that are coming on this ear, so I'm going to try to replicate that. Next, I'm going to do the fur that goes along his body. So same thing, lightly erase. And this is much more just like little marks. Really teeny tiny little marks. This fur is a lot shorter along his body versus his ears. We're going to do the same on the other side. Oops. Not going to completely erase it because I still need it as a guide, but there we go. Little tiny marks. And then along the bottom of his body, the lines are going to be a little bit longer because right there, the fur is a little bit longer. And that's all it is. It's just tiny little marks. Now we're going to do the fur on his legs. So again, we're going to lightly erase, not completely. very lightly erase, and then just draw lots of little marks to indicate his fur, that there's fur there. Same thing on the other leg, lightly erase, and then come back in. I'm going to do the same thing for the back two legs as well. So that's good for the fur that's showing along the outside of the dog. So next we're going to tackle the fur that is showing more along the inside of the dog. So with fur, you don't want to draw like marks along the whole body like this. It just doesn't look right. And it's hard to explain exactly why, but looking at this image, I'm noticing that like right here, I can really see the fur in these certain areas. So I'm gonna try to replicate that. I see the fur kind of do like little marks. These are the areas that I really see his fur a lot. I'll also like around here, by his legs. I'm gonna do like lines there. I'm gonna add some kind of random marks throughout, kind of a little bit here and there, not everywhere, just to give an idea that he has fur everywhere. There's always these marks. We're going to draw those. I'm going to see at least one of them on each back leg. And then I'm noticing that he has whiskers, kind of. It's not like a cat, but there's these longer hairs hanging off of his mouth that you can see. So I'm going to draw those in as well. Do the hair on the rest of his face. So there's a lot you can see in between his eyes. So I'm going to focus these areas we're going to show fur. And the direction of where you put those marks is really important because it indicates the direction of where the fur is going. So I wouldn't want to draw it, for instance, that looks weird, doesn't look right. Instead, I want to draw them going up on a curve toward the top of his head, kind of going on this line, kind of spraying out almost toward the top of his head. And along the sides, it's going to be different. It's going to be going downward. Yeah, something like that. I'm going to do a few above his eyes. That. Lighten up these hairs, they look a little too dark. Now I'm going to draw on his eyes. So when you look at his eyes, you can see a bit of light reflected in, so I'm going to leave a little bit of it white on purpose, and then the rest I'm going to draw in. And the same thing goes for the nose. There's a little bit of white showing through. So now that we have our dog sketched out, we're going to refine it by going over with ink. Go outline what I've drawn. So right now I'm drawing the outside of the dog. For the nose, don't color in the whole nose, just color in the nostrils. We'll come back with color later. We're just trying to do the outlines of everything. Draw the fur, and you don't have to worry about it being exactly what you sketched. mind. Now I'm gonna color. So since he's a golden retriever, I'm pretty sure, I'm gonna use a yellow color, more of like a golden yellow. I mean, you could really use crayons, markers, colored pencils, whatever you have on hand, whatever you prefer. Color in his body. Next, I'm gonna do his nose. I don't want quite black, but I want a dark gray. If I do black, then you're not gonna be able to see the nostrils very well. So I'm gonna do a dark gray for his nose. And then I'm gonna draw him his bow tie. So I'm gonna get a red. And I'm gonna go over it with some green and white.